So after the tiki torches burned in the night in Charlottesville, not so very long ago at all, I did what we do in times like these. I attended an interfaith rally in the face of that violence, which in that time, in that searing, scary week, we were given to interpret and make meaning of. And we were there together. Many of us, in fact, many of you, we were there because we needed each other and we needed community on that day. We needed each other much as we need each other this week. I personally needed to be with my friends, and I was so grateful when clergy from every faith tradition in this county, we rose to bear witness to the power of love and the depth of our responsibility for everything that lay ahead. I was where I needed to be, embraced by a community that was my own. We wept and we hugged and we proclaimed. And near the end of the service, a chorus of mostly Black labor leaders and unionists, they rose up to sing the gripping refrain of the Black national anthem. You know it, perhaps, or you will know it soon enough. Lift every voice and sing, proclaim the lyrics of James Weldon Johnson's classic song, Till Earth and Heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. It soars with power and with possibility and with belief that those harmonies of liberty will resound. In the Black church tradition, the people stand when the anthem starts. At Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, whose pastor will now serve in the U.S. Senate, the people raise their hands, eyes flashing toward the future they believe in and will work for. They grasp their neighbors on the arm while singing those words that are uniquely endowed to the Black American church tradition through a history of oppression and courage and resistance and resolve. And the lyrics carry on fearlessly, without flinching, without denying. They sing, we have come. Over a way that with tears has been watered, we have come. Treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered, out of the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. We have come over a stony ground, a path through blood and tears. We have come to stand here. And so I gathered together with friends and people of faith after the death and the terror of Charlottesville. I gathered with them led by African-American voices in that proclamation of pain and triumph. And after all the words and all the talking, some of it my own, after all the statements of heartfelt intent and healing and speechifying that a new way begins today, etc., etc., etc. It was that liturgical moment from a tradition that is not my own, which finally brought me to tears. Here truly, singing of the ground over which we have trod, here truly was a liturgy of honesty. Here truly was a public lament that we could not unhear, a cry out into the chaos that none could move on from too quickly. I thought here truly was an authentic encounter with the broken, open heart of the holy, and a declaration beyond all the slogans and all the speeches of what this nation is and has been. Here truly was church being church, holding the brokenness long enough so that we could truly confront what needed to be confronted, holding it long enough so that perhaps once faced, we could collectively do something. I tidied myself up after getting all flustered in my emotion at the end of that service. My robe and my stole were all wrinkled and crooked, like frankly they always are, and I got myself together and headed to the door. And as I was beating what I hoped to be a hasty retreat, I overheard one of my friends, a white woman, much like me, a companion, On many parts of the journey, someone I love and have fought alongside through one damn thing after another. I heard someone so much like me, someone I trust, leaning over to her friend to discuss how moving the service and its words had been. What a lovely service, she said. It was exactly what I needed. But that song, she said. That song with all the blood and slaughtering at the end, that song, she said, so ghastly. The service was so uplifting. It was just the message we needed. It was what we need to hear right now as a nation. But that song, so ghastly, she said, with a face like she had caught a whiff of something stinky in the air, and my heart wanted to stop beating. As if the aesthetics of reality are so unpalatable that the safe and comfortable among us would rather complain about their unpleasantness than begin to carve a way forward that for once does not tread over the blood of the slaughtered. My heart wanted to stop, and I wanted to scream, and I wanted to have some big eloquent words like I so often do, and I wanted to be all righteous by using those eloquent words to shout down the same old nonsense, because if I was honest, almost nothing else in the whole service mattered at all except for the searing honesty of that song. I wanted to do all of those things, but do you know what I did? I walked away. Because I was tired, because of my privilege and my caution, and the fact that I did not, strictly speaking, in that moment, have to engage in correcting the fallacy that the only meaning to be made in the face of white rage comes from false reassurances. I walked away, never mentioning that the song is ghastly because American history is ghastly. Never mentioning that the song is triumphant in places because at times American history, and particularly African American history, is triumphant, and that those things, the ghastliness and the triumph, they crash right up against each other just like they did this week over and over again. Never mentioning that the people declare words of slaughter and blood and power and possibility because such words in the context of our history are the only words that are true. I walked away, and I did not say out loud that people of color and those marginalized again and again and again in the annals of this nation's history are under no obligation to tone it down so that other people can be less inconvenienced by the presence of a ghastly truth like white supremacy. I walked away, have mercy on me, and I didn't say anything. Because then and now I had the privilege of soaring words less meaningful than an honest lament. I had the privilege of moving on into a life in the continued flow of the same old bloody story we do not want to hear, because then and now it remains too unpleasant and we want to move on. But this week, again, I hear calls in the air and through the screens, calls among the good people, among my friends, and even in my own heart to proclaim again some sanitized version of reality so that we can all move on. This is not who we are. I have heard time and time again this week. This is not who we are. This hatred, this bald-faced white supremacy and complicity with fascism, this unpalatable and low-class Trumpy nastiness, this is not who we are. The we in this case, it appears to me, being a variety of collective identities, depending on just who it is we would like to absolve in that given moment. This is not who we are. In various turns, various people have proclaimed this week that all of this is not who Trump supporters are, is not who the Republican Party is not who America is. This is not who we are, people say, as a way to redirect the eye and the heart from the ghastliness of the truth. This is not who we are, when in point of fact, this is who we are. We collectively in this nation, this is who we have been for literally hundreds of years. In this moment, when I say we, I mean we Americans. I mean we this country. I mean we the people. We, the denizens of the greatest democracy on earth, we who cannot ignore our collective and cyclical history in which the anxiety of a perennially disaffected, usually financially insecure and violently frightened white populace can be played like a fiddle by racialized authoritarianism to its own violent ends. The insecurity that is thinly veiled by white rage has been in us and with us for 400 years. In an important and unavoidable way in this country. This is who we are. It is who we were in 1637, when a mob of white Puritans desperate to claim the land marched on native Pequot villages in Mystic, Connecticut, and slaughtered nearly the entire populace because they were afraid the colony and the power would not remain their own for long. It is who we were in 1863, when a white mob of working class New Yorkers killed each other rather than submit to fighting the Civil War for what they understood to be the foreign cause of the Southern slave. It is who we were in 1877, when white supremacist militias threatened violence if their preferred anti-Reconstructionist president wasn't confirmed. The same militias that transformed into the KKK, the United Daughters of the Confederacy, and the very progenitors of the militia forces that stormed our Capitol this week and threatened to return at inauguration time. It is who we were in 1921 in Tulsa, when mobs of white residents, many of them armed and endowed with power by elected officials, took to the streets to tear down evidence of Black industry and wealth. When we, the Black leaders who are also we, rebuilt Black Wall Street again and again, always at risk of having it torn down. And it is who we were in 2017 in Charlottesville, when a white mob chanted that 6 million murdered people in the Holocaust was not enough. And if our leaders really believe that that we have seen this week is not who we, the people in this nation, are, really believe that it is not who we have been, they are not reading our history, or they, like me, in times of great privilege, have just kept on moving when the song got too ghastly to keep singing it. And I know that we, the people, are other things too. Especially this week, which is such a microcosm of the whole. I know we are other things too. We are art and innovation and progress and hope. We are grassroots organizers and the upswelling of the people's power. We are Ebenezer Baptist Church and the New Georgia Project. We are on our way to becoming the most truly diverse democracy in the world, with a multicultural voting populace organized and energized like never before. We are a nation of uprisings and mutual aid and tenacity. We are a place of possibility and courage that manifests in loud and quiet ways through those who are arising in this moment through the ranks to lead where we will need to go. We are all that too. And God knows I am aware that what is and what can be are not the same thing. That the bloody remnants of the past do not have to be the same as the beckoning future, but you cannot recover until you admit you have a problem, until you let that problem move to the forefront of your mind, even when it hurts to do so, even when you'd rather move on, even when you have the privilege to move on. You cannot recover from this or any addiction if you just keep taking the next damn drink. And it is no exaggeration to say that this nation has been addicted to white supremacy culture for 400 years. Why? Because we have made money off of it, often at the expense of our own people who had nothing whatsoever to spare. For many in this country, predominantly those among the white working class, white supremacy culture has been dished out as a balm of anger that is easier to take than the more painful truth that comes with permanent insecurity. As the entirely imperfect Lyndon Johnson put it imperfectly at the height of the civil rights era, if you convince the lowest white man he is better than the best Black man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he will empty his pockets for you. It is not somebody else. It is not a few bad apples. It isn't even just one very bad man at the helm of a very big ship that will correct course and steer in exactly the right direction as soon as a new skipper takes the wheel. It is who this nation is. It is us. As Eddie Gowd Jr., the chair of African American Studies, put it not long ago, when he was interpreting and making meaning of yet another violent American tragedy, 2 more mass shootings in one 24-hour period, he said, "This country has been playing politics for a long time on this hatred. We know this," he says. "And so it is easy for us to place it all on the president's shoulders, but he is us. And if we're going to get past this, we cannot blame it on him. He is a manifestation of the ugliness that is in us." This is who we have been for a very long time. In order to not actually invest in the well-being of all its people, this nation has peddled rage to the white populace like a cheap drug over and over and over again until the predictable outcome happens over and over and over again. Instead of attending to the actual needs of the people, this steady IV drip of disaffection and rage keeps the white populace of this country just anxious enough to be hungry for more, and we pretend like it is all genteel political difference. And shades of every contrary opinion, we pretend these things until it boils over like it always does in the violent cataclysm of every single era in American history. And then every time, when the same old thing happens, just as it has happened before and before and before, those in power say the same old thing. A few bad apples, prosecute the dangerous ones. This is not who we are. The addicts bear the brunt of the blame, and the oligarchs at the top who have been dispensing the poison manage their brands all the way to the bank, again and again. This is who we are. This is not unprecedented. This is not a blip on the radar, nor an isolated tragedy. This is not the work of one man. This is who we are. And yes, there are aspects of this moment that are unique in history, that are specific to the very particular choices and crises and conflagrations that led us to this particular crisis. But the underlying causes and the ongoing struggle are not new in the least. And I need to tell you that this isn't who we have to be, because that's my job. And I need to tell us all that there has got to be an off-ramp for the addicts. There has to be a way to start getting clean, to wean this nation from the rage. I need to remind us that all the grassroots organizing and political effort works, because it worked this week in the very heart of the old Confederacy. Organizers led by people of color put the work in to change the world right now, right in front of us, and it works, and all of the future depends on what we do right now, and all of it is true. But I cannot, in good conscience, finish this sermon by tying it all up in a bow and being particularly affirming today. I cannot come back to the beginning and make this story less ghastly just because we so wish it could be that way. Thankfully, there are other Sundays, and I will get back to my speechifying next week. And we will gather here again, same time, same virtual space, but from the sanctuary. It is MLK weekend then, and I'm going to talk about Howard Thurman and Jesus and possibility and hope, because that also is what we do. But today I cannot leave you or myself with anything more soaring or affirming or eloquent than a loving and honest look at where we find ourselves again. Let us begin from the place where we are. No other better, less ghastly a place. Let us begin where we are and move forward every single day, beginning by being a little more honest, until in time we can be a little more loving. And in time, yet again, a little more whole. Amen. And blessed be.